So, like I said, let's start off with childhood, upbringing, where you're from, and superhero origin story.
Superhero, okay. My name's Ben Holmes. I grew up mostly in Mesquite. My mom and me moved around quite a bit when I was a kid. My life came from a broken home, so I already had, I guess, what you could say is walls up around my heart. I was pretty guarded. I went to Poteet High School, considered myself a pretty good athlete at the time, and ended up high hopes playing sports in college, and had two pretty significant injuries. I think my sophomore year I blew out my knee, tore everything in my left knee, ACL, MCL, meniscus. Came back probably a little too soon, and ended up tearing my quad in front of a bunch of scouts, so I decided I was going to hang up sports. So, you know, my mom, I remember a specific conversation where I asked her if she had any money or anything saved up for college, and she said no. She said we could figure it out. So decided then, you know, college, it just wasn't the road I was supposed to go down. So started thinking about other things, other opportunities. Had some men in my life that were kind of a lead role into my upbringing, the male figure, so to speak. And one of them was a Marine, and he was always quiet about it, didn't say much about the Marine Corps. Decided that was going to be more of a challenge for me, and maybe fit that time in my life a little bit better. So I joined in 2005, so you know, obviously 9/11 wasn't too far before all this happened, and Iraq was still kicking off pretty heavy. So, I mean, needless to say, there were a lot of people signing up. Went to the recruiter. Initially was going to try to get something in the infantry, and they told me it was like a 6-month wait. At the time, I was okay with it. They said just keep working out, which I was in great shape, but all my friends started going off to college once we graduated and making plans, and I went back to the recruiter and said, hey, what can we do to get out of here? So they found a spot in communications as a radio operator, and so 0621, and there's always the chance, you know, that you'll get with an infantry unit, and there's the chance that you'll get stuck at a pogue office somewhere. So I took that chance, went through boot camp, did really well physically. I mean, I honestly feel like I was in better shape before boot camp than after. Came out, was fortunate enough to go to 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines in Camp Horno. That's Camp Pendleton. I don't know, I guess I just kind of set myself apart physically, and they decided to put me out with Weapons Company. That's like the senior company in infantry units is a weapons company. They're heavy mounted guns, and when I got there, I think we were over between 24 and 30 different vehicles, all of which had communications that I had to maintain and keep up, as well as all the man-pack communications. I also had to learn how to operate the machine guns, the TOW, the JAB, 50 cals, Mark 19. So I got the opportunity that I originally wanted to be a part of that infantry unit, that brotherhood that I wanted when I first signed up. Our first deployment, I believe we call it a Westpac. It's out like Okinawa is the main base that we operated and ported out of. So for 6 months at the time, we were going to be traveling just about every Asian country you can think of: Cambodia, China, Japan, Thailand, and we even hit Australia at some point. So about 5 months in, they told us that we were actually getting extended. So we stayed there for a total of 2 pumps, 2 deployments, which ended up being over a year. So came back, and my unit finally got announced that we were going to get our chance to go to Iraq. The captain of over Weapons Company at the time approached me a couple months out from our deployment and asked if I would extend my contract to go to Iraq. They offered me any school I wanted, so I was torn between SEER school and jump school. SEER school would be fun. It'd be a hard, you know, test for myself, but I guess part of me wanted something else to put on my uniform, so I went to Airborne. They made the announcement that we were going to go to leave, so we all went home to see our family and say our goodbyes, you know. And to me, I guess it was overdue. You know, before I went in the Marine Corps, I feel like I probably had wood fences up around my heart, and now after the boot camp and after all the preparation, I feel like it was cinder blocks. It was like they created this machine that just wasn't super in touch with reality and empathy, and the little kid that wanted to be a youth pastor was now like this, closed off man that was ready for war, essentially. The rules of engagement at this point have changed substantially. When you talk about my seniors and the type of deployment they had in Ramadi, Fallujah, kind of no questions asked. You were there basically to make precedents and make yourselves known and basically take care of things. Our deployment was much different in the aspect of we're there with now an Iraqi army trying to train them with civilians that are carrying assault rifles, AKs, RPGs, and this is normal. At some point right before that deployment, they moved me into a scout sniper team that was still part of weapons company, but now I was the senior operator over I think we had 2 or 3 other operators, but just operating with the team. The team was primarily for observation at this point. We were there in country to observe, and there was no border presence between Syria and Iraq, and that's what our unit was there to do. So a lot of Iraq is supported through their imports. So trying to shut down the importing of what's taking place over there is almost kind of shutting down their way of life, because they're bringing in weapon systems and other people that you don't want. Along with that, they're bringing in eggs, they're bringing in fruit and vegetables to sustain themselves, because you would go in these little towns, these villages, they might have some chickens running around or a goat or 2, but then you'd see fresh produce, and there's not gardens anywhere. They got really no source of water, so everything that they're receiving is being imported in. So the whole goal is to observe them crossing the border. You obviously can't tell what they're bringing in, or a lot of illegal things coming across the border at that time. They transitioned me into a MRAP to set up a live UAV feed. At this point, we hadn't heard that it had ever been done over there. So the UAV feed was always set as a stationary setup. So there might be somebody back at a FOB base, and they'd be receiving that feed and directing people to certain houses or towns to where these people basically made entry into. I was able to permanently fix the satellite that was used to receive that in the computer and the MRAP to where the signal would be spotty, but we would be able to be mobile. So we were able to connect with the drones and other type of air support that we had and get a live heat signature feed, so we could start watching these guys as they cross the border. As we started seeing the people coming in, we could start heading in that direction and essentially follow them into the towns and be able to identify which houses they were and immediately kind of make entry and figure out what was going on. Creating that UAV feed, it opened up a new opportunity to where weapons company in a whole, meaning sniper platoon, heavy mounted cat platoon, which is heavy mounted guns, we were all kind of created equal at this point, because we created that UAV feed allowed everybody to kind of have the same asset. I'll never forget, one of the most vivid pictures and memories I have over there was we're operating or moving to this location, and we arrive on site and see, it's kind of a ghost town outside. It's real eerie, dogs barking, and nobody comes out to greet us. We get out of the Humvees and MRAPs and start making entry into the buildings that we identified as the operations or receiving areas for those guys that came in. Walking and moving through the town, and seeing these civilians with AKs, and turning the corner, not being able to really do anything about it because we're trying to obviously allow them to have their freedoms, but not knowing, if they're with us, if they're against us, no emotions on their face, just staring at us with AKs in their hands, knowing we have to somewhat turn our backs to them at some point to continue with the mission, and not know if they're going to try and pop a couple rounds off when we turn our backs. Just that feeling of, I don't want to call it fear, more or less just the knowledge and the thought process of knowing that, something's not right here. Just know that we have the capability of taking action and putting ourselves in a safe position, but also knowing that we are not allowed to do that was a very, very, I guess, kind of indescribable feeling, helpless feeling, because you literally have to wait to be fired upon before you can fire back or make any kind of efforts to make the scenario safe. So this is just a very eerie concept behind what we're trying to do over there and accomplish.